Hello, Dave here with emergencyprepguy.com. I'm excited for this video. What we're going to do in this video is we're going to build 3 raised garden beds. But before I get into the video, I just want to do my little plug. If you get any value out of this video, if it benefits you at all, please don't forget to just subscribe to the channel, like the video, and hit the little bell so that you can get notified of our future videos that we do. So I appreciate it when you do that. When people do that, that really helps us get the word out. And so that's my little plug. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to, like I said, build 3 raised garden beds. They're going to be about 4 feet wide by about 12 feet long and about 12 inches high. And I'll show the whole construction process in the video. And then I probably won't show the filling it with dirt. That's going to take a long time and would frankly be probably kind of boring, but I'll talk about it after it's done in the video, what we did. And then I will show what we're going to do is we're going to lay thick black plastic over the top of each of the beds and around the beds. What that does is it will on top of the beds, it'll hold warmth and moisture in the beds so that any weed seeds that are in the soil that we put in the raised beds, they'll begin to sprout and grow. And then when they don't get sunlight because of the plastic, they'll die. And so a month from now when we plant, we should have pretty weed-free soil in the raised beds. Then at that time, I'll mix in some more compost and so forth. And then the reason I'm going to put black plastic in between and around the raised beds is just to kill any grass or weeds that are there so that I don't have to deal with, in the summertime, mowing in between those, because that kicks a lot of seeds and weed seeds into the raised beds. So I'm going to, you'll see me lay that plastic down. I'll show you how I do that. And then in a month or two, we'll do another video probably where I'll lay the mulch down in between the beds and so forth. So I hope you enjoy this. I hope you get some good ideas from it, and we'll get going. Okay, here I am in my backyard here. One thing I want to explain about this yard is you'll see it. This is a house that we've lived in for a little over a year, and we rented it because we moved to eastern Idaho here and we weren't 100% sure we were going to stay in the little town that we're in. Now we've decided we love it, and so I think we've got another year or so on our lease, and then we'll be looking around and buying. So I haven't wanted to put a lot of money into this backyard. And the situation with this backyard, just FYI, this is a older home, really cute little older home, but they hadn't. You can see that big building there. That's a big company that has a building right there, and that used to be part of the land. The guys that used to own this house owned that land, and they sold it to that company so they could build that big warehouse thing they have there. And I'm not sure really what the story is on this backyard, other than there's almost no topsoil. The first spring, I rented this house in the middle of the winter, didn't know it didn't have a yard really to speak of. And when the snow melted, I was like, oh, it was literally almost all weeds. And if you can see that big pile back there, that is a bunch of soil that I've just been mowing around it and letting the weeds grow on it, but I'm going to get rid of it this year, as we're doing this project. But it's just like a leftover pile from whatever they did on this house. This older home was recently remodeled, and so there was a bunch of construction going on. So the landlord told me to be real careful of nails or screws or whatever in that pile. What I'm going to do is, when I build these 3 raised beds, I'm going to be using that pile as a source of soil So I'm gonna have to sift through it really carefully, make sure there's no nails or anything in it. And I noticed there's a bunch of rocks and stuff in it too. But anyway, so that pile will be gone. It will be in these 3 beds mixed with a bunch of carbon material, organic yard waste and so forth. And anyway, just I just wanted to explain all that, because when you see this yard, you're gonna think, oh, that guy's not very good at keeping the yard. But the yard is so much better, you know, than it was when we moved in here. It's got a lot more grass. I've you know, I haven't wanted, like I said, since it's not my house, I hadn't wanted to spend a lot of money on it, and the landlord didn't really want to spend any money on it, which just kind of surprised me. But so I put a lot of grass seed down on it, but it's still mostly weed. It was literally almost all weeds. There was no grass, and I was just mowing weeds. But now I've got a lot of grass mixed in, and I've sprayed the weeds the first fall I was here. I don't want to spray weeds anymore because I'm gonna have chickens in here, so I've let I've not sprayed for weeds for a little over a year to let the ground recover from it. But anyway, when I have chickens in here, I'm hoping that'll get the grass coming back a little bit. But anyway, so that's why the yard is what it is. But this spring we just really wanted a garden, and so we're going to build these raised beds and have a garden. Okay, again, hopefully the wind isn't too noisy. What we're doing here is super simple. You can see I've just got a little cordless drill there, you can see, and all I'm doing, sorry for the shakiness of the film, okay, all I'm doing here is basically I pre-drilled. I've got a drill bit that's a little, you know, the right size for the screws that I'm going in, so it's smaller than the width of the screws. But I'm drilling, pre-drilling the holes, and then the screws that I'm using are these 3.5. You know, here they are. They're these 3.5-inch deck screws. Probably a little overkill. I probably could have gone with a 3-inch. But that's pretty much it. As you can see, I'm just lining the boards up together like I want them, and then with the drill, pre-drilling the holes, and then with the drill bit, and then running the screws in. So I'm gonna do that, and I'll let you watch the process, and we'll go from there. Okay, as you can see, this is a pretty simple process. These are just 2x12s, and I'm holding them together. And with my battery operated drill, I'm pre-drilling the holes and then putting the deck screws in. In hindsight, if I was to change anything, I would use, instead of the 3-inch deck screws, I would use, instead of 3.5-inch deck screws, I should say, I would use 3-inch, and not quite such a fat deck screw. I would use a little thinner gauge deck screw. Later on, I switched to shorter, thinner deck screws, and it went really easy after that. But all in all, pretty simple. So, okay, I pretty much got them all put together, except for the 2x4 2x4s I'm gonna put on top. But I've got the 2x12s all together, and if you noticed in there when I was putting it together, the ground is pretty uneven, and some of the boards weren't perfectly straight, so it made it a little bit interesting. I couldn't just drill all the holes and then go in and put all the screws in, because I had to kind of hold it a certain way to get it to look as square as possible. But anyway, and I've got them pretty much where I want them, but as you can see, the ground's pretty uneven, and so I'm gonna have to be leveling the ground a little bit. I'm not gonna try to get it perfectly level, but just so that there's not an obvious big slant on there. So anyway, that's the next step.
Okay, so what you'll see that I'm doing here is I've got a yard edging tool, and I'm basically going along the outside and the inside of these raised beds next to the board and cutting the sod, which this accomplishes two things. It basically draws a line there where I'm going to need to dig the trench, but also it cuts the sod, makes it a little easier when I do dig the trench to do it neatly. And then what you'll notice too is as I once I move the board and I dig out the trench and set it back in there, that it looks quite a bit more level than it did. I'm not using a leveler. I'm not trying to make it perfect, as I said, but it looks pretty good, I think. Okay, what you'll notice here is that this last raised bed has one corner because it's right next to that hill and it's really, really high. And so this one is taking quite a bit deeper trench. I'm going to have to do quite a bit more work to get this one to be level. And so with the edging tool, I'm cutting all the sod along the inside and outside of the board where it's high again, just like I did on the other one. But there's going to be a bit more work in digging out the trench to get it to look level. So you'll notice as I start digging that bugger out that you probably can't see it from this angle, but I had to dig it quite a bit deeper. It's quite a bit more work there to get that to look good. But you'll see here as we get her done that it looks pretty darn well. It's not perfect, but it looks quite a bit better.
Okay, now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take 2x4s and I'm gonna basically create a place to sit down along the edge of the raised beds. I got this off of a guy on YouTube. He's from Jersey. I can't remember his name. It's a gardening forest gardener. I can't remember. I'll put a link below this video to his video, so you guys, if you want to look at his video as well. Also, that same guy, what I was interested in with his videos is he has a hoop house. By hoop house, I mean just over the raised bed. He's got a cool way of doing that I think I'm gonna use as well.
Okay, so this part is basically, I'm just bringing out the 2x4s. By putting the 2x4s on the top, it makes it easier to sit when you're out there weeding and so forth. So I like that idea. Plus, with that guy that I have the video below in the links, where he does his little hoop house over the beds, you need those 2x4s to support it. And so it helps with that as well. So I'm just trying here, I'm trying to get it all even so that when I screw in the boards, attach the boards, that they are even. So that's all I'm doing here.
I love getting old. I'm feeling it. I have a ruptured disc, and bending over like that, I'm starting to feel it, but we're making it. Anyway, well, there I've got the 2x4s up. Now the rest of what I'm going to do is I'm going to I've cut some 2x4s into about a foot long, and I'm going to put some of them under each side to give that 2x4 something else to screw into. So we'll do that, and then we've got to cut the 2x4s to the right length to go on the ends, and then screw them in, and then put little 1 foot 2x4s under those too. So.
Okay, so as you can see here, I'm taking the shorter 2x4s for the ends, and I'm just laying them out where they're going to go. What I'm looking for is some of them fit perfectly, and so then on those ones I can do the pre-drilling, and other ones they don't. Either the boards that I'm going to attach them to are crooked, or they're crooked, and so those I can't pre-drill. I have to wait until I can hold it and pre-drill and then put the screw in right after. So that's kind of what you see me doing there. You run into that when you're dealing with lumber. Not everything's perfect and straight, especially when you're building something like this on less than even ground. And then what I start doing is I start putting the foot long 2x4s underneath the 2x4 rails, so that I got something that I can screw the rails into. That just gives added support that I'll need for when I build the hoop houses on them later. I wouldn't need it if I wasn't building the hoop houses, but I'm probably going to be building the hoop houses, so that's why I thought I would do it.
Okay, a few days have gone by, actually about a week and a half, and you can see I've got those finished. All right, so as you can see in these raised beds, they're full of dirt. Right now it looks like they're maybe even a little bit too full, but that's okay. The soil that I got here, I was in a hurry to get it. I might regret that a little bit, but this was represented anyway as regular topsoil, like you would use to if you're put on your lawn. It wasn't compost. Normally I put a lot of compost in it. It was very light, fluffy type of soil though, which was good. The guy that I bought it from over the phone made it sound a little bit better than I think it actually is though. But anyway, it'll be all right. So what I did when I was filling this is it's going to be about 3 or 4 weeks before I'm ready to start planting in this. We're right at the 1st of April. I'm going to start there's some things I'm going to start planning as early as the 1st of May or so. Where I live, it's in, I forget the zone, it's in like zone 3. I'm thinking I have to go back and look at the zones and make sure, but our last day of frost is like May 29th. So we might even be June. I'll have to look at that. But anyway, so what I did was I put in a lot of yard waste, grass clippings, leaves, things like that. So when I put this in, I laid the branches that I cut down real at the bottom flat, and then I put a little layer of grass clippings and leaves and stuff on there, just a thin layer on top of those, and then I put a layer of dirt, and then I put a layer of grass clippings and leaves, and then I put a layer of dirt, and then I put a layer of grass clippings and leaves. I did that throughout this pile, and I'm hoping that now I've got about 6-8 inches of topsoil up at the top that I don't have any grass clippings in those because I'm not quite sure how fast it'll break down. I did spray the grass clipping layers with what people call the drunken composting solution. It's I don't drink beer, but I bought it for this purpose. It's a mixture of beer, can of pop, and 8 ounces of ammonia, and you put it in one of those weed sprayers canisters that you attach a garden hose to, and you just wet it and you put it on the highest setting so that the most of the solution is coming out. Anyway, and that's what I did, and I sprayed down each layer with that, hoping that that'll get some yeast and some microbes going in there. I also, the one other thing that I put in here is on one of the layers right above the I think it was the last layer of compost, or last layer of leaves and and grass, I put, I sprayed it with that solution, and then I put some compost that I bought from the store in there as well. And so when we get ready to plant this, I'm gonna get some more compost and put it on the top. My only worry on that, you can see I've got a compost pile in the pot, and I had a lot more yard waste than I needed to put in, that I could put in the beds. But so I've got that working on getting composted over there. But the only thing I'm a little bit worried about in this is the where there's not a lot of air down there, covered with dirt. I'm not sure how fast the grass clippings and that thing will break down. So that's why I left 6-8 inches or so on top of just dirt. So most of that stuff's way down. And then I put some compost, make some compost, and I'm going to mix some more compost in this as we get a little further. But anyway, so hopefully, I'm hoping that over the next month that the level of material in these beds will lower a few inches. I'm hoping that the grass clippings and that sort of stuff will decompose enough to where they lose mass and lower this down. That's why I filled it a little bit high, because I want to put some compost in to these beds when I get ready to plant. So I'm going to lay plastic down. I'm probably going to cover this whole hill, and probably from about where I'm standing back. I'm going to cover it all with plastic, the beds included. I'm going to cover the beds in plastic. And the reason for the plastic is it will kind of keep the ground warm, and the weeds won't get enough sunlight. And so if they'll sprout, if there's any seeds in the beds, they'll sprout and then they'll die. So I want them to have about 3-4 weeks with the plastic covering it.
Okay, so you can see that I'm laying this out and I'm cutting the plastic to the lengths that I want, and then I'm trimming it so that it'll fit in between the beds. This process would have been a little bit easier. If I would have had somebody to help me, I could have used a straight edge, and I just could have gotten it more exact. It would have been a little bit better, but either way, it worked fine. The other thing is I'm laying it out in between where I want the grass to die, so that I can put mulch down later in 3 or 4 weeks when I remove the plastic. And the main thing is the beds. I want the beds covered so that the plastic will keep the warmth and moisture in, so that any weed seeds in the raised beds will germinate and sprout, and then they won't have any sunlight, so they'll die. And so by the time in 3 or 4 weeks when we plant this garden, it should be pretty weed free. So that's the plan. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. Appreciate it.